Is 1:05, and we are back for our second work session. A lot covered over the last few hours. Let's see where the next few takes us. There was a couple of topics that we left off on, correct? Dealing with ongoing money. With,
There's 2 pages with ongoing. One, the
positions.
first part is, you have the landscape one with all the issues, and the first part is ongoing operating.
Right.
Right.
And then 2 pages behind that are some position requests.
Yep, you're correct.
Okay, so,
We took care of that page.
what's that?
I'm talking myself, so we took care of that page.
Well, we can go with the ongoing operating. You covered capital. And then others was the one-time request, which I think we covered down on. So where do we want to go first? It's going to be either the
Well-
capital or the ongoing operating.
I can say our position requests that are here for like solid waste facilities,
Uh-huh.
we're waiting until we get the Siegel report back before we hit them. Am I correct with that?
Not necessarily, so we can have that conversation
Okay.
on, I won't say there's low-hanging fruit, but there's the positions that we know will occur. With the Siegel study coming in, but we just know that they're going to be identified. So we can address those. We can,
I mean, I'm sort of the mindset that we've got that 7.2 million set aside for Siegel.
Right.
You know, why can't we dip into that a little bit to perhaps use in filling some of these position requests?
Well, you can. There's nothing sacred about that money. Just keep in
Right.
mind why it was put there, though. You have position requests in front of you, which is business as usual.
Right.
There are lots of other positions that could have been in the mix here.
right,
None of that is specifically about why we took on the studies, though. That was to say, we've got problems, other than just how do we get enough people, or how do I say it? Whether we were doing the study or not, we'd be talking about these positions.
Right, right.
So with Siegel, we're talking about what changes do we make to compensation and how we do things. But although we have said
partially.
there's probably going to be the need to add positions in connection with making all that happen.
Right.
That's correct. And it's not necessarily all about compensation. It's about structural changes that, you know, we free up something over here.
Right.
That in turn allows us to do something over here.
It could be, although I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there.
No,
And,
I'm not so sure.
On the idea of waiting for Siegel for positions, what's going to come out of that is not going to be, you need this position or you don't need that position.
right.
Right.
Although if you remember to the first report, one of the things they said was, you're pretty much lean everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, they said, we don't see opportunity for major change by getting rid of positions. You need more positions.
Right.
Yeah, and a couple categories that they definitely highlighted was the administrators, getting a deputy, the IT, HR. I mean, there were certain areas that they highlighted. The challenge also is not to look at this like salami slicing increases, although there will be the requirement to get to the minimum wage, but that's where I think the Siegel study is going to help us at the end of the day, is the compensation. Just
Well,
I mean, I think so.
yeah, I think so too. I
So-
just think that, you know.
But I
in-
think we can address some of the positions now, and
Yeah.
knowing that we do have money set aside.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was
Oh,
going
yeah.
to say, I'm okay with addressing positions now, but the $7.5 million you put aside for Siegel, I don't think we should touch it until we see the study. We don't know how much of that we need. If we have extra, that's great. But if we're going to start chipping away at that now, I mean, I don't know how many positions there are and other things, and how much we're going to have left.
Well, the only thing we're gonna see in the next part of the study is the compensation part of it.
Which I think will take up a major part of that money.
It could, but who's to say that we have to go by exactly
No,
what
we
they're
don't.
saying?
We don't have to do that.
So if
but-
they're saying we need $7.5 million in raises, I'm here to say, well, we're gonna do what
Well,
we wanna
no-
do.
Nobody's saying that.
Okay,
though.
When it
yeah.
comes into, well, there's such a thing as cost of living as it pertains to, you know, Carroll County as well, that I don't wanna forget in this whole mix. And the median, the median cost here of living in Carroll. I don't want that to get lost in all of this, and,
Okay, the Siegel study is not going to give us the number.
Right.
They're not even going to tell us, here's what you should
Right.
do.
right.
They're going to be pointing to places where they're saying, if you want things to be different, here are some ways you could go about it. Now, on the idea that there will be extra money in that $7.5 million, I don't believe there's any chance of that happening.
Great.
We might choose not to spend all of it, but it's going to be because of the implementation choices that we make. I think when we look at all the things that we think we should do to make things better, the cost will exceed anything that we can actually even hope to do. And when we talk about the things that we're going to look at, now there'll be more details attached to all this, but one of the things we'll be talking about, raising scales. You know, so just in a general way, people will make more money, and that's going to be very specifically tied toward recruitment. You know, higher base pays make it more likely that we attract people to apply for the jobs in the first place. And another piece of this will be moving people through scales. Where do we place them?
Right.
Now, you know, when you lift the scales, people who are already here don't necessarily benefit from that. You know, if you're in a job category and the starting pay went up, that doesn't help you. What are we going to do about that? And some of this might be about looking backwards to, you know, people who've been here but didn't move at other times. We're going to be talking about things like, do we want to look at how we pay people when we hire them with experience differently? You know, right now, we're pretty inflexible about what we pay when somebody comes on. Are we going to change that? And with a lot of these things, there's going to be interesting conversations to have, because there's clearly good to be able to offer somebody who's bringing experience more money to get them to come here. But then we have to think about what impact does that have to other people who are already here. Then another thing we're going to be looking at is our supervisory promotion policies. You know, right now, that's pretty rigid too. You move from here to here, here's what you get. Sometimes people are looking at that and saying, nope, that's not enough to make me want to take that job. And there's going to be a series of things like that. And every one of them, there's going to be some room to say, yeah, we want to do that. How much do we want to do? And how much of the money is that going to take up? But I believe that in the end, we will look at all these possibilities, and we will have strong arguments for making changes in all these areas, and we won't have enough money to do all the things we're saying, yeah, we ought to do that.
Just like our budget.
Yes.
All right, therefore, I don't want to touch the $7.5 million. I want it to stay there.
with you on that.
We'll look at this other stuff and see how we want to handle that, but leave that money there until we get the study back and see what we can do with it.
How does our budget look if all these positions got adopted?
There's no money for
Because we
one.
need them all.
There's no money for one position.
Well, perspective, so to speak.
There's, say, $600,000 worth of positions there. your bottom line gets worse by that amount, plus,
Right.
well, yeah, we have benefits built into these numbers, right? Yeah, okay. So your bottom line gets worse by about $600,000 a year.
And I know we have a crisis with all this potentially, if not already.
Yeah, I'm not sure this has come up, but this is probably a good place to mention, in connection with facilities, because several of these positions are in connection with facilities. In the recommended budget, we did include new positions for facilities, recognizing that we're adding about 125,000 square feet of buildings with state's attorney, sheriff, Charles Carroll, and what am I forgetting?
Training center.
The training center, the public safety training center?
Yeah, I think this one. Is that the one we put?
No.
For additional square feet.
Okay. So that doesn't address their current pressures. That's just not making the pressures even worse because of the new buildings.
Interesting.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, this is what it looks like without it. Close to 12 million negative. And then 12.7.
And it would put the FY '26 in the red as well.
And before, I think it was 27, that's moved up.
Yeah, 26 was already 200,000 in
All
the
right.
negative.
Well, not when we started the
Not when
day.
Yeah,
we
it was-
started.
No, that's correct.
It was 300,000 to the good.
Right,
Right.
What happened?
and now we're looking at it being,
It's the EMS training money.
I was
Yeah.
kidding. Kidding,
Sheriff's
trust me.
Yeah.
so,
I knew it was
Well, that's
something.
interesting. Well, if you're not gonna look at using any of that set aside money for future Siegel work, then I would suggest that none of these positions will be able to be filled.
I'm not sure why we wouldn't look at that 7.5 million one more time.
We can decide to do whatever you want.
No,
I mean,
I'm
I'm
good,
just
but I'm-
saying.
You're advocating to not touch it at
Right,
all.
I am advocating not to.
And you agree.
But I'm one, you guys we can look at it.
No, no,
but
I
that
understand.
I
We'll
think-
have less money to implicate the Siegel study.
I think there,
And it's not just about compensation, it's about, it's just, from what I understand, there's a lot going into it that would hopefully make the county a better place.
yeah, well,
So we need money to implement it.
I'm
But
not
there's-
disagreeing with that.
yeah.
I just think that some of these positions, I don't know. I mean, for instance, the outsourcing of the detention center, maintenance. I think that case was clearly made. That would free up a couple of the folks in facilities that they need, which
So
might help.
there's an offsetting balance, not needing the other one or more employees or something?
Well, it could create that, I don't know. But I thought
That's a
there
good
was,
thought.
I thought they made a good case as to why that should be done.
I do as well.
They can't find anybody that wants to work there, and if you've got a company that is willing to come in and do the maintenance on it with just a general supervision, some sort of supervision from one of our folks, I think it's a good idea. But, you know, that's recurring, that begins at about 186 grand. So,
Yeah, and on that one, I don't believe facilities would make the argument that that offsets any of the needs that they've identified.
well, I kind of asked the question, though, you know, that would free up, if you don't have somebody specific, of course, there's nobody filling the position now. They throw somebody over there that is working somewhere else, so. But I kind of asked, if we did have that off of your plate, would it assist with other personnel? And the answer was yes.
Yeah, I think it would make it easier for them to do everything they need to do. It just wouldn't eliminate the need for
No,
somebody.
okay, I said it wrong. But I'd like to see that in there. I think that's a great plan moving forward for that facility, especially considering the fact that it's aging.
I obviously, with the way, the questions I asked there, I'm not for that. I'm for getting two people that are trained for that facility, and when they're not working here, they can work other places. And it will cost less money. But I'm not the expert on Public Works, but, I just think it would serve the county better that way to have two of our own employees working here to train for there. And like I said, when they're not needed there, one or the other, then they can work somewhere else. If we contracted that out, we don't have that flexibility. Those people that are contracted out will be there. We're not gonna have the availability, I don't believe, to pull them anywhere else, because they're contracted for that particular place.
But they're contracted only during the time that they are needed in that particular place.
Okay, and it's still
So-
more than getting two
Right.
full-time employees.
Which you're not gonna find. Good luck hiring 2 employees to work over there. You can probably start them out at 120 grand a year, and you ain't gonna find anybody who wants to work over there and do maintenance.
I might be tempted.
I mean, I'm exaggerating,
I
of
know,
course, but.
I know.
But you're just not.
I know it's difficult. I do know it's difficult to find. I mean, maybe the contracting is the only way to go, but I'd rather look the other way first. You can always contract. And if you set the money aside for contracting, you can't get 2 employees that would save us some money, then you've already got the money set aside for it.
I like having the depth of a company that specializes in that, because if we're outsourcing it and they come up short, they have the bench and the depth to probably pull from other resources to help out. And I think that's what facilities is getting at it. It's one less thing on their plate to be stressed about, that the outsourcing outfit would take care of that.
Well, where's our bottom line right now?
Real low.
Well,
Add in all,
No,
is that the one with
that's-
all the positions added in?
yeah, that's,
Now, did
Because
you
to
take
be
that
honest
back
with you-
out?
no, that's with all the positions added in.
No, she
No,
just,
it's
not.
there it is.
There it is.
That's not that much difference, to be honest with you. It's not.
Well, 700,000 in the
It's
last year.
$700,000.
Oh, come on.
I mean,
Yeah, when you go out, yeah.
yeah. So that's pretty significant.
I would entertain taking those 6 positions out, or all those positions out, and putting in the outsourcing of the detention center, preventive maintenance.
Take away all those other positions?
Yep. Right now.
Well, that'll come to a lot less money. But we still need, I mean, you said yourself, how are we getting away with one fire inspector
Well,
and the permits processor? We need, I mean, it's not like these people aren't needed.
but you argue that the Siegel study is gonna tell us more about that. That's what you're arguing.
No, I didn't say that. The Siegel study is going to talk about compensation. It does not necessarily talk about any of these particular positions. If we need a fire inspector, we need a fire inspector.
But the point that Ted made too was, we didn't hear from other departments that
true.
need. We only heard from these because that's what these particular departments came up with.
Yes, which doesn't diminish the needs here. I just
Right.
wanted to make sure we understood that you didn't hear from everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the 3rd time that I read Siegel, I started the 4th and then I put it down.
Ending never changed.
Yeah, it never changed. You know, there was an emphasis on there of having the help that's needed, and we don't have that right now, because
Right.
there's less people doing a lot more. So,
Emphasis on depth.
right, so
Yes,
if you're gonna do that, then I go back to my thought of taking a little bit out of that 7.2 and putting that into the mix to help cover for the positions that were asked for, including the outsourcing of the detention center preventive maintenance.
Well, if you added the
Or
outsourcing to
that-
those
that's
other
not part of the-
positions.
Yeah, don't use that money. Take that out, put that in, take a little out of the 7 point whatever
What the heck
is,
you talking about?
put the preventive maintenance in.
Poor Deb.
What do you mean, preventive maintenance in?
For the detention center, that program.
Yeah, you lost her
You
on,
mean-
take that out, put that in.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You mean the
All right, hold on.
contracting people?
No, put that in there.
Yeah, put the contractors, that's where you wanna see the
I wanna see the
I wanna see them
contractors in there.
Yeah, see how, what that makes a difference.
Can you, I apologize, but explain to the rest of us.
Now,
what
hold on a
that
minute,
and-
I'll get there,
and-
hold on,
You don't need to know.
simmer.
He says this isn't fun time of year.
Yeah.
All right, so now they're both in, so
Now they're both in,
the facilities.
got it,
Outsourcing the facilities
Right.
and all the requested positions.
okay.
So, where do we go from here?
How much is that overall?
We go broke.
Let's look at the, if we're taking that out of the Siegel money, the 7.5, out the first year, because that money's ongoing too. So that would go with that, correct?
Yeah, that's where I was going.
How much do you want to take out?
What both those things add up to.
Well, no, I was gonna leave the detention center alone, because that's not really employee, well, it is,
Well,
but.
but we gotta, employee or contract, gotta pay for it, or
Well,
somehow.
I know.
So if you took that out of the Siegel study, how much is left in Siegel?
I just
The
realized this
7.5.
screen was here. That's pretty nice, I can actually see it from here.
It's not bad, no. I just look this way so people on camera can see my face.
For salary?
That's a good thing.
I got it open.
See what it be.
26 starts 5% then. Okay.
So basically, we're taking $1 million out of the Siegel study,
Yes.
ongoing, to fill all those
Yes.
positions in the contract for the detention center. So we have 6.5 million or so left.
Change year 26.
Hmm?
And we took the positions out, correct?
No,
No,
No.
all that were asked for are in there.
And that would leave, what, 6.25 in the Siegel?
Yeah, just about.
Well, I think really what we should, this has some one-time costs in it, so we probably should be doing it like this. Just to offset. Yeah, I was growing the 1,024,000 by the assumption of the salary
Right.
increases. But this here and a little bit in the next line has some one-time costs, and I was growing that in
Gotcha.
the reduction of the Siegel.
Yeah.
which-
Okay,
So it's really the, closer to the 800,000 ongoing, which grows to $1 million
Right.
reduction in Siegel going forward.
So if we're looking at it in today's dollars, it's about 800,000. Right.
Yes, in an ongoing.
Right, yeah.
Which would leave us the flexibility of 6 million for Siegel.
Well, let's see.
6.7.
six.
Yes, isn't 6.6, something like that?
6 or 7, something like that.
5.5,
We have
5.2.
$7.1 million in FY '24 in an ongoing way.
Oh, okay. Because it's already gone up since it's 7.
Mhm.
Hmm.
All right, I hate to keep skipping around here, but while y'all are staring at that, I got a question. We looked at capital, everything, and the library technology. Why was there nothing in '23, but they wanted something in '24?
They have, they believe they can meet their needs in '23 with what's already programmed. They have some one-time money you gave them, plus there's 100,000 already in the recommendation.
Okay, so we increased it by 100 grand in the
Well-
recommended budget anyway.
Well, the recommended budget continues what was already in our plan of $100,000 a year.
Okay,
Then, I forget what year, but you gave them one-time money somewhere not too long ago. the combination of the 100,000 that's already in the plan, plus what's left of one-time money, gets them through 23.
Okay.
And they're saying in 24, it will no longer be enough.
Okay,
But we did not put that in this yet,
no,
CCPL. We put all these other capital projects, except for that one and the recreation area master plan design, we addressed. Whether we agreed with it or not, we addressed.
Well, that's because the library didn't have anything in for this year.
well, that's, yeah, but,
Yeah, but-
you know, I'm here,
I know that they need it, but I just,
yeah, I don't want,
That's
I don't
why-
want it not to be forgotten in
Right.
24, I guess.
Yeah.
So
honest with
why,
you, that's why I
why
forgot
don't
it.
we, why don't
So-
we put that in as a capital project?
yeah, I think we should.
Okay,
But, you know, if
we
we're
all-
looking at one-time money, and we are,
yeah,
if you add all those things together, you're looking at about $1 million of one-time money
Mhm.
that we would add in '24. Because we don't need to add anything this year. Add $1 million one-time money in '24, and we'll have another $21 million in one-time money.
Right.
At that point. And that takes care of all those needs out to '28 for their technology.
Okay,
they're gonna be very happy with that. So I'll make a motion, or unless you want to.
well, I don't care, I just, I was just checking this one more time, and I saw that empty slot there, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Good
So-
catch.
And then I'm not sure about this Union Mills recreation area. I mean, they wanted 35,000 out in 28. I mean, whatever. I don't, I
Let-
mean,
Let's go with the library, with the one-time funds for the capital projects.
in
Add
20,
those up.
in 24,
Well, we can either go 23 and hand it to them, or wait till 24. I mean,
I mean, why not wait till '24?
if they think they've got what they need in
Right.
23, I would be okay with putting it in 24. Whatever the total of that is,
yeah, okay.
and let them use it accordingly. Or do you want
Okay,
to?
well, if you're gonna give them one-time money,
May as
it'd
well
probably
do
make
it
more
upfront.
sense to put it in 23 rather than plan to put one-time money
Right.
in at a later
This way
date.
you're
All
just doing
right,
it
whatever the
upfront.
total of those, whatever the
Right.
total of that is,
Put it in 23
I say put it in 23
as one time.
as
Right.
one-time funding.
All right.
And since he said it, let's do it.
All right, it's a motion.
I'll
It's a
second.
placeholder motion.
Second and placeholder.
Okay, I got a motion and a second as a placeholder motion for CCPO.
Yes, good catch on that.
I'm gonna be very happy.
Yeah, I just happened to.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Stop skipping around now.
And then the 35,000 for the master plan and design of Union Mills Recreation Area. I mean, it's gonna be a lot more than that by FY '28.
Well,
So I don't even know. I
Okay,
think we just,
That 30, that's not even right, that shouldn't be 35,000.
It's the county match. POS covers 90%.
Oh, okay. All right, so that's for the master plan.
oh,
That's not doing anything. And the question you really need to consider isn't, are you willing to fund the plan? Is, are you willing to fund changes to that?
To
There's
the-
no point doing the plan if we're not going to spend other money on it.
right. All right, well, I don't know. I mean, it is my district, but I'm just not sure about that at this point.
Well, since that's in the distance, that could easily be looked at next budget or something.
It could be, right,
It's not, I mean, it's a ways away.
yeah. I just don't look at it as a priority now, and since we need every penny we can get, I think maybe we should just let that alone for the time being. All right, sorry about that. And we can skip back to the,
Good diversion.
to the personnel. I was sort of scooting all around there, sorry.
It's all right.
I think you're right.
I like that you're thinking out loud, gives us something to
Well,
think about.
that's what we do.
Yeah, and when we get to more motions, if we could take it a little bit slower, and if, just make sure we say clearly what the motion is, and then
Okay.
what the end vote was.
Can you
Okay.
not put it in, take it
So
out,
moved.
put it in, take it out?
Well, just so when we get
Yeah.
somewhere, that we make sure we capture it right.
Right.
So you
We'll have to
got,
control Commissioner Wentz.
you got that one, right? You're good with that motion?
Which that motion?
The library?
Oh,
was it
Yep,
all
you guys
five?
good? Okay,
Yes, but the ones I
Did you
have
vote for it?
highlighted here,
You vote
Right.
for it?
these three lines did not have motions. I think it was just, you were discussing it and said, well, what would it look like?
yeah, that's
Right,
all,
right,
that's,
right, right.
that's all we are right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I apologize. I skipped to the library because I was looking down through here. I was reading behind instead of reading ahead.
How do our deficits look in the out years on that?
Well, if you take it from the Siegel study, it doesn't change it at all.
Oh, yeah, and on this idea of the money we have put aside for implementation, and I know we talk about the Siegel study, I just want to make sure people understand, the money isn't about the Siegel study, but what we choose to do with what we
Right.
learned from the Siegel study.
Right.
So that's just an easy way
Yeah.
to talk about it. But I just want to, when we talk about how much money, I know $7.5 million is a lot of money, sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about what we're trying to do, just to give you context, in this year's budget, you gave the sheriff, I believe, a 14% change in how much money was available for salaries, about $2 million. He's asking for $2.95 million, so almost $5 million for strictly compensation changes to 270 positions. When we're talking about implementation, the other thing, we're talking about the same sort of compensation changes, plus possibly other changes for 670 positions.
Gets eaten up fast.
So when you think about 5 million against this and 7.5 million against this, it no longer sounds that big, I think.
Valid point.
Okay. Well, we can look at the county positions that we have in front of us. We could look at the other than county positions. There's 2 or 3 of those. My thing also is, we know there's positions that are out there that should be addressed, even in absence of the Siegel study assessment final recommendations. I mean, there's certain things we know regardless.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I mean, we already know the pressures on positions and
Right.
providing services.
Right.
That's not dependent on
Right.
any study.
Right,
And again, what we're going to get from Siegel is not an evaluation position by position
Right.
of need. So we know what we're going to know from them in that regard.
It's gonna be more focused on, you know, it'll be focused on compensation, but it'll be focused on the services we provide and what we're able to provide and what we're not able to provide in any sort of depth and capabilities. So,
Well, that was more about the part we already got. And-
right, but we can, so with that said, we can define what that means, you know? I mean, they spelt it out on a couple issues, but if we only know we're able to serve, you know, X and we only have so much depth, some of these positions make perfect sense.
Oh,
and
yes,
we
I
should
agree.
address them. You know, we talked about having deputy chief administrator, you know, that should be addressed. Having a fire inspector should be, I mean, there are services that we know should be addressed. So, okay. The couple of requests that came from the outside, the circuit judge, judge clerk, and then also the animal control officer came in front of us. You know, the jury clerk was brought to our attention about the amount of trials and all that kind of fun stuff they're going through. Was there any feedback from any of you on that?
I think it's a working position. I do think that they need it. When's the last time we gave them another position? We got in a courtroom and did we
Right.
give them the support positions for that?
From the
Anytime?
increase of judges to where they are, I think the way he was describing, we have not added positions.
Yeah, I don't remember it. We'd have to go back and look.
That's an area where I wish we had more support from the state government on financially.
Well, I mean, the circuit court's a really funny one with the state, because they do provide funding to the circuit court, and we provide funding to the circuit court.
Right.
And where the line is drawn changes from time to time. You know, the state will say, well, we were paying for this, but now it's yours. And every now and then, they've actually taken back some costs, but it's a bit of a moving target. But no reason to think that they're gonna make any significant change that's gonna
Right.
relieve us of funding responsibility.
Is there some sort of formula they use with the judicial branch distribution like they do with schools? Because it all gets so convoluted to me. Is there anything like that applies to our courts and our finances?
No. Yeah, and this is a real squishy area with circuit court and state's attorney. You know, we're required in law to provide funding to them. And you can look to case law that has kind of led to an idea that we are required to provide adequate funding. And that adequate funding is driven by what the state's attorney and the circuit court administrative judge think is adequate. That's not a blank check. You know, if the state's attorney came over and said, you need to double my salary, and you went to court with him, double my budget, and you went to court, he's probably not gonna win that case. The other side of it, you can't cut his budget in half and think you're gonna win that case. You know, so there are no lines. There's nothing that says, here's what you have to fund. Everybody understands there's a certain area that's possible, but nobody can tell you what the right number is.
But where there are lines are the size and the amount of judges and within the court system of each jurisdiction. You know, that's what, you know, according to the judge, that's what he was describing was the increase that has occurred over time of the court here in Carroll County. And then the question is, have we increased the support structure, like the jury clerks, to that growth? And I don't think the answer is going to be yes. I think the answer is no, we've increased the amount of trials and the amount of, you know, caseloads that these folks are going through. And that's why he came to us, so.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing against the position. I don't know for sure. I would bet that we added, when we got the fourth judge spot, I would bet we added something. I just
Yeah,
don't remember
okay.
what that was.
Okay.
So I think we don't have to give it to them.
What's that?
I think they don't need that clerk.
Well, I think they do, so I'm gonna make a motion that we move using our funds, ongoing funds for this circuit
I will
court
second
jury
that.
clerk. Okay, is there any discussion on this?
What do you mean using our ongoing funds? We don't have any.
That's where it's going. Isn't it coming from our
Well, it's
operating
ongoing,
funds?
but
Yeah.
it's not like we have ongoing
No,
funds to
no,
put
no,
there.
but,
Well, at least
right.
see what it
It goes
looks
into our
like.
budget.
Okay.
Right, sorry.
Test drive it before you buy it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The other position was the animal control officer.
Yeah, the first year, it's more than double the,
Well, we put the one-time money in for the van, so that's not
all
true
the
anymore.
vans included.
Yeah, at the time, the idea was putting in a van, even if you don't add the position.
Right.
So that they have a
Right.
better backup. one.
Good idea, I thought.
Yeah, I can't remember who suggested that.
Commissioner Weaver?
But now the question is, do you want to fund another animal control position?
Do they generate any revenue of any sort, like fines or fees, services?
Yes, that comes to us, though, and it's already built into your revenue projections.
How large is it relative to their, it's minute or?
Yeah, it's not significant.
So it's not something we could look into, maybe increasing fees or something to offset it?
Yes, there are fees you could change, but it's not going to offset a position.
All right, because I thought maybe if there's some fee adjustments, it could cover that. So you're saying it wouldn't happen?
No, it could get you closer, but it's hard to imagine that you would make a big enough change to, cover the additional position.
I have no idea what type of financial structure they have over there and how revenue comes in outside of us.
Are the revenues in here?
Because it'd be nice if they could potentially evaluate their fee structures like we did in Ayers, because they could potentially have their fee structure too low.
No,
Or
they're they're your fees.
Well, they're air fees, okay, I thought they were separate.
You know, it's,
Did we review those?
from time to time it comes up, doesn't get a whole lot of attention.
All right, I just don't recall.
We have not talked about that
Okay,
recently, no.
thank you, I don't remember.
You know, remember, the Humane Society is its own organization. We contract with them to be our animal control. Animal control is your responsibility. So these fees, license fees and impound fees, you set those in your role as providing animal control.
Because if we keep coming in and filling the shortfall, I don't think they have any real motivation to go in and review their fee structure.
Well, if you look at it, you're talking about dog licenses and so forth, that's a fee.
Yeah, all that stuff.
If you raise them, people just won't get them. Not everyone gets them anyway. So, I mean, you're not gonna track me down if I don't pay for my dog license.
But the cost of everything's going up.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't know what it costs. I think it's $20 a year or something like that for a dog license, which isn't much. But you raise it to 40, I might not be buying it next year. Not me personally, don't.
The-
Now that's out there.
But
You
that's
don't
just,
have your license?
that's just what's gonna happen now.
The
And
revenue.
That's the problem with that. There's no, it's not like you're driving your car around and you need the plate with a little sticker on it. Everybody sees that.
True, but there's
It's
a lot
just-
of,
it's
at
not the
least,
same.
Ted,
You could
The
staple,
revenue in total might add up to $150,000.
you could staple the license on the dog.
well, if they're all out there listening from animal
Nobody sees-
control, if they want to take and try to look at it, that might be helpful. See if they think it eventually need to be revised.
But it's our fees.
Oh, more like 100 than 150.
Oh, okay.
Right, but it's yours to set.
Yeah, but I mean, they'd have to counsel and advise us to, with their in-depth knowledge of where it's at and what the trending is and all that. If they think it's worthwhile, it's something that should be brought to our attention with data for us to make that decision. But I just don't know. But I was hoping there's some money out there somewhere.
It was just voted on increasing water and sewer fees.
Well, actually, for this one, I would
I
say
wasn't
we
so
need
excited, so-
a public campaign saying, get your dog licensed, and this is what the money's used for, this helps out. Most people don't realize that. And
Public
I
awareness.
don't know how many dogs are unlicensed in Carroll County, but I bet there's quite a few.
27,342.
I can pay for that guy right there.
He's the Jeopardy winner.
So, I agree, we can do that, but we can also, like you said, is take a look at fees. I wouldn't say doubling them, you know, but if they are $20 going to $22.50 or $25 or something, which makes sense, you know, we do owe it to the community because it is a fee structure, and those that, you know, are paying for that animal or has that responsibility should pay for the fees.
I think that's been a very good thing we've done with this board, is go and look at all the different fee structures and bring them in line with where things are now. And this is no different.
Well, let's look at, how long it's been since the dog license fee was increased.
And all the other fees they might have.
Whatever, they don't have many, but what their fees were, okay, if you look at what it costs, what does that cover? You get your dog licensed, you don't get a benefit from that. It's not like you can take them here and there, you can take them anywhere anyway.
If you lose them, you can find them and bring them back, that's
They have a
valuable.
chip, all dogs, well, not all dogs are chipped now, that doesn't make
Well,
any
if they're
difference for that.
registered, right?
Say it again?
If they're registered, they get.
No, you don't need their license to be chipped.
You don't?
No.
Is that something animal control does, or is that a different facility? Do they chip animals?
I don't know, my dogs were all chipped before I got them.
Okay.
I don't know who did it.
Because if that's a service
What
they offer for
benefit do you
public
get
awareness,
out
we
of-
potentially
Yeah,
drive
what's
people in
your-
there for the revenue.
Because, you know, if you're looking at that,
Become a dog chipper.
Ooh,
I'm just saying,
that's a
you,
bad
you wanna raise
visualization.
the fee, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but you wanna raise the fee for dog's license. Why would you get the dog's license? How does that help you or your dog? I
Well,
realize it
Is there a
helps-
law requiring them to be licensed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, then,
Okay. We arresting people for not having a dog's license?
yeah, but we could have fines on them.
Well, we do.
There is.
There is.
All right.
And still, it's
Well, I
just
don't-
hard to,
Yeah,
it's not
hard-
an easy
I-
thing to see.
It's hard to enforce, I get that, I know. I don't remember looking at these fees
No, I
in
don't
the
ever
7
remember
years
doing
that we've been here.
I
Do you,
don't
Dick?
either. I think it warrants their attention.
So maybe it
At
is
least
time
get
to look at
educated.
those. That might help a little bit.
Let's look at the next
Can you-
budget
can you-
session. On to the
Who's got
dogs.
the Humane Society?
I
Can-
wonder how many people in animal control are out there watching us right now, if any.
Can you
The-
call 'em
The three
and-
of them are, they're there.
Maybe,
Know what that means?
maybe Heidi, get a feel for if other jurisdictions, they ought to know that.
What they charge?
What it costs to get a dog licensed in Baltimore and Frederick or something, I don't know. I don't like to do jurisdiction comparisons, but maybe we're way behind, I don't know.
It seems to be a constant theme that we are in this region, we need to kind of look at our surrounding jurisdictions to get a feel for where we're at. Not only EMS, but even things like this.
Well, I will say that they certainly made the case to put a person in that new van you just bought them.
I think it's worthwhile. I think we should try to do that if we can. I do.
They did make a case that, you know, if
Yes.
somebody's off, that they only have so
They-
much
they are exhausted.
territory or
That's
whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I think
I mean,
it's
it's gonna,
needed.
it's gonna mess, we're placeholding now anyway, so why not just
Yeah.
put it in there? I'll motion we put a animal control
I'll second
officer in
that.
there in the front seat of Fraser's new van.
Okay. Got a
bring him
motion,
in
got a
toward that van.
second. Any other valuable discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor? Aye.
So you put the word
you
valuable
say
in here,
yes
I
or
couldn't
no?
say anything.
Did you say aye?
I said,
Okay, just want to make sure.
you hear me,
Dennis?
Weaver?
We can start a cat tag.
Cat tag?
Yeah.
I have dog tags. You have dog tags. Okay.
They don't give you a big net.
All right, what's that do now?
It just puts us further in a hole in 26
Yeah, how's
forward.
26 and 27 looking?
It's looking nasty. And we haven't gotten to the hard stuff yet.
Yeah, well, some of it.
Hmm. Okay. And you said this does include all of those positions that, you know, from facilities and solid waste and.
Yeah,
permits?
because we took it from single money.
What, it reduced Siegel like $750,000 or something?
So whatever, 800,000, I believe.
I reduced the Siegel by the ongoing costs of the
Right, that's
positions. Not the total for the first year. We
Okay.
could put another 270, it's about 270,000 of one-time cost. We could use, we could take another 270 of one-time surplus funds to cover that, if you wanted to.
Sounds like a good idea.
So moved.
Second.
It's a good idea.
That's why she makes the big bucks.
You're probably dying for one of us to think of that.
Okay, we all agree on that? Say aye.
Aye.
See where this goes.
Ted, are you reading a good book right now to help you get through all this?
Always.
Good. Me as well. Would it be a wise idea to take the balance in unassigned funds and apply it to offsetting bond financing in the future?
No,
You have a feel for that?
it doesn't save that much money.
Well, here's how I want to preface this, is I am well aware that in the out years, the cost of our financing is going to exponentially escalate. And it's not showing up in these numbers because we don't know what it's going to be. But I foresee that's going to happen. So financing 10 million in the future is gonna be much more expensive than our chart shows. So that if we offset, say, 10 million at finance of one-time funding, we are going to save money in the future in finance costs.
Our future bonds, we've already bought the bond, we already have the bonds. That's set for the next 10 or 20 years, Arizona bonds, that's what the debt service is. That's not changing.
So we're locked in.
Yes,
There's no variation on it from here on out.
unless we
Get new
refinance
bonds.
those bonds somehow. That's
Are you
locked
talking
in.
about existing debt or future debt?
If you're talking about something we're
Well,
gonna
either
borrow
way,
in 10
you know,
years.
whatever, if we could potentially, I'm trying to figure out a way to save money in the future on debt financing, if at all possible.
Well,
You're talking about adding debt.
well, yeah, the way to do that is to put 10 million aside, and in 5 years, instead of getting bonds for 10 million, use the money that way. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, we can do that. Then, as always, you know, it's just, it's a trade-off, you know, trade-off between having the flexibility of still having the money
Right.
versus, you know, using it to reduce your debt. Another one, there's not a right answer, it's just a choice we have to make, you know, what do we feel better about?
Well, by doing that, we would be increasing the debt on the county.
No, he's going the other way. He's saying if we had planned $10 million of debt in the future, put 10 million of cash on and not issue the debt.
Oh,
Save
Just hold the $10 million aside that was needed for some capital expense. Basically what you're saying.
But we wouldn't even hold aside. If we were gonna do that, we would take the $10 million, we would put it into that capital project,
Right,
and then
okay.
it gets spent
That's
whenever.
coming, right, okay.
We just reduce that amount from the
And-
financing. And I'm wondering how much does that save, whether it's worth it, at least look at it potentially.
Well, right now, $1 million of debt is probably $50,000 a year of debt service. Now, as you said, things, we don't know what it's gonna be 2 years from now or 4 years from now. But just so you know, for planning purposes, in the future, we don't assume that we're gonna continue to sell at what we're selling today. We
Right.
do build in higher costs.
right.
Now, we have no way to know if we get it right or
Yeah.
not, but, you know, we aren't just drawing a line through what we have.
So $10 million would be 500,000
Right.
in debt
Yeah,
service?
it comes out $500,000.
Pardon me? If rates go back up, but, I mean, right now, it's not.
Deb, can I see the bottom line one more time? Well, I'm sure it's not one more time, but for now. Man. So from the start to where we are now, we've pretty much changed $700,000 in FY '26.
News.
And went further downhill with the others.
Not a lot.
Yeah, we did.
It's not a lot worse than it was. I don't think it is.
It's 700,000 in '26, it's almost $1 million in '27, and what? '28 pretty much stays flat, which is interesting. Why is '26, '27 that much of a difference, and '28 remains flat to where we started?
It probably has to do with the sheriff's office.
Right, okay.
The costs
Okay, I
are
see. Okay.
increasing here because we're moving them forward. They weren't in '26
Right.
and '27.
And there's lots of things that can lead to bumpiness in here.
Right.
When debt service hits, when new ongoing
Right.
operating costs hit, and also on the revenue side, you know, like we talked about the assessments that we have built in the future. They're not all the same, so the revenue number doesn't always grow in the consistent way.
Still working on
Have we looked at the school's request yet?
No.
Okay.
Or,
Huh?
well, I mean, if you're talking about for raises and
Yeah.
so forth, you haven't worked the schools or the sheriffs or the
Well, no, I
community
thought we
college or-
did talk to sheriffs.
Say it
No,
again.
we didn't.
No,
You're
we
right.
did not.
We did not.
Schools, we haven't looked at any outside agencies' requests for higher salaries.
Right. What was the sheriff's request for percentages for salaries? It was
Well,
1.9
$2.9
million.
million addition.
Remember, you tried to have that conversation, and it got into a very lengthy talk about how they apply it, so we never really got to it. Even when I talked about what you did this year, when I said 14%, that wasn't 14% per person, that was 14% for the
Right,
entire pot.
Right.
So, we could, after you do that, can you figure out about what that would be?
So they're getting 14% more this year than last year?
From 21 to 22, yes.
Some of them is more, some is less.
Right, I
Again,
understand
not
that,
person
but
by person.
14% increase is
Significant.
pretty nice.
Yes,
And another 4% then on top of that.
right.
Wow.
But it still doesn't get,
Oh, I know that, I understand.
Yeah, I
but
know,
that-
and I
that's-
know that everybody's trying to get to what is perceived to be
The magic number.
The magic
Right,
number of where
right.
everybody starts and where
Yep.
everybody should be stepwise. Which,
Okay, if
I'm
we're
here
gonna
to
do that
say,
roadmap,
again,
just tell
it's just
them
not that easy.
This is X
And,
percent more.
there's also,
It's X percent more
we
rather
forget
than
about
trying
cost of
to
living,
figure
we
through
forget
what it
about
is.
what the median income is in
Yeah.
Carroll.
Yeah, so it's $2.95 million
We always
on
compare
top of something.
salaries to surrounding jurisdictions. It seems like that's
Well-
how we always do it, but yet our cost of living is
Okay,
certainly
yes,
much
that's-
cheaper
Right.
than Montgomery or Baltimore or Howard.
But I-
Frederick,
yeah.
maybe, but,
I know.
so it,
I just don't think that the sheriff's department is looking at the surrounding jurisdictions. I think they're looking at a larger amount of those jurisdictions. And even if you threw out Montgomery, Baltimore County, and some of the very
Don't worry about the second one.
counties that skew those numbers, you will still see that they're woefully
So 4%.
lower than the median averages. And
I
that
guess.
concerns me. I mean,
yeah,
just,
it concerns me too.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even started on the fire and EMS yet.
I know.
You know.
On your question about the sheriff's request, so right now, we have a 4% increase already built into the recommendation. To get the additional amount would be at about 12.5% on top of the 4%.
So if you do it percentage-wise, it was a 14% increase for salaries from 21 to 22, 4% 22 to 23, but an additional 12 is needed, so, percent.
Yes.
So 16 and 14 is a 30% increase.
And that gets into kind of the
That
middle
50th
road for
percentile.
everybody around. Is that right?
That's, I don't, that,
I
I'd like
guess.
to have to explain exactly what that means.
Yeah, that's,
Because we can't be at, I don't know, let's throw it in 60,000, can't be half of what these people are making in other jurisdictions, can it? 62,000 and people in Howard
No,
County
no,
making
no.
120?
No, that's not what they're saying.
I didn't think it was.
No.
So I need
Right.
to understand what that
Now,
50
what-
percentile means better. I just need to know
I
what that
think
means.
what I believe, and they can come in and correct us, but is that the 50th percentile of all the jurisdictions may be, 70,000. And they're below that, so they need that increase to get to that
To get to
50%.
50, okay.
Right. It's
Okay.
not
I got you,
50% increase, it's to get them to the 50%
So
percentile.
what basically half of what
Correct. That's
jurisdictions are making?
where
Gotcha,
that,
gotcha.
either 1.9 or 2.0, whatever
Yeah.
number it was. Yeah.
That makes
I
sense.
mean, I just
And-
think it's incredibly challenging for us to get from point A to
Yep.
point C
Yep.
like that.
Yes.
I mean, last year, we did a little bit to get to
Yep.
where they need to be, and maybe we're looking at that again.
Yep.
But I don't know where it's gonna be, even if we're looking at a little bit, because right now, we don't have it, but
Right.
We're gonna face the same with EMS.
Oh,
they're starting
absolutely.
out, if you wanna use the word woefully low?
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you woefully and raise you double woefully. 'Cause it,
Sure, woefully, yeah.
triple dare.
Show me that.
Yeah, when I seen they want EMTs for like $16 an hour, I was like, but you can go to McDonald's and get that.
That's what some of the volunteer companies are doing. That's not what
Okay.
we'll be suggesting.
We're gonna be a little bit different place, but
And on your question about if you did the sheriff's request this year, what would the 2-year change be? It's about 28.5%.
Right.
What percent was that?
28.3.
But we gotta do sheriff and EMTs the same, and we gotta bring them up to an acceptable level.
which is why I'm thinking if we can do a little, maybe that's the better way to do this. I just don't I don't know how we're gonna get to A to Z.
No, I think, right, I
E-
think.
Even if we
Yeah.
use that 3-letter word that we talked about 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
We can't get from A to Z.
Okay, when you said on EMT, we need to bring that up, I don't want to lose, we're not bringing
Right.
anything up. We are creating a paid system
Right.
that's going to have a pay.
Right.
It's not about how much is a current EMT working for a company making.
Yeah. They're
This
gonna
is
start, but then
This
in
is
the
our-
out years, you're gonna see that occur with them. It's the same with the sheriff department, you know? When
Right.
the sheriff's department took over law enforcement here from the state police, it was a similar situation, you know, growing pains. Obviously, you're going to have them. You can't just give everybody everything right out of the gate and say, okay, you're golden. You can't do that.
It's 11
Even
years
if we,
into it.
you know, people keep talking to me about, well, you know, if that 59th board wouldn't have cut that tax rate, trust me, that 3 million or whatever it was would be long gone on something.
It's about 8 million is what we're talking about here.
Okay,
Just,
Yeah, it wouldn't have
okay.
spent.
Again, long gone.
Yeah, but if
It would have
But-
been.
if we had that 8 million right now,
We could use it.
we could
Okay.
fund
well,
all these pay increases.
Is card a 3-letter word that gets you from A to Z?
So,
Not at today's
it's
gas
just-
prices.
it's-
okay.
Go ahead, Ted.
Back a couple steps, we were talking about savings on debt service. Right now, $1 million at 2%, which is where we've been recently, is about $65,000 a year. Now, of course, if the rates go up, then the cost or savings, depending which way you're going, would go up as well.
so it'd be about 650,000, the way it was described. I want to keep pulling the thread on the sheriff.
What did you say?
I want to keep pulling the thread to having
Okay.
this discussion on the sheriff's department. They're asking for how much, one more time?
Say 3 million.
3 million for their salary.
$3 million, that's more than Dr. Evil asked for.
You know, again, we're looking at requirements, all the constraints that are around us, and then how to balance all this out, obviously. We put this requirement in there, there's gonna be something very specific that's gotta be taken out.
Is a bonus out of the question instead of a salary increase? Didn't that get done before as an option?
No, for our staff,
Like if we pulled
not
that,
good enough either.
what was that?
It's not good enough. Bonuses don't fix an HR problem. They put Band-Aids on it.
Yeah, the attempt here is to fix the scale.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's the issue is we gotta get them balanced to where they can retain the quality that they have. And, you know, I think every one of us talks about safety, security, and education. This is the major muscle.
Find 3 million to cut recurring, and I'm good with it.
And then the problem is, in my opinion, this isn't the only pay increase that hopefully we're looking at. I'm, you know, looking at the college, looking at what you looking at?
Board of Education wants an
Yeah,
additional
Board of
4
Ed
million.
and the library. Library is what I couldn't think of. And,
And the
Yeah, I
county.
don't-
And the county.
yeah, well, hopefully that's, what's left of that 7.5 million helps with that part. But it's true, all those, if you add all this together, that's a lot more money than just no way to get to it. So I would like to see some steps. You know, we can make a step here, step here, step there.
Which is what we've been doing.
To
That's-
show, well, yeah, but it shows we're in good faith moving in the right direction.
We are, but the problem is they're not able to retain their
That's not
workforce.
what I heard.
Well,
How many people did they lose, the Sheriff's
I can't
Department
tell you
lose
a
in the last
number,
couple
but
of years?
One.
How many-
No.
how many- No, I
No.
don't, I think you're right.
I mean, I think there was one in the last couple months or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, in
that
the last
individual
month or
left to
so.
go into another, into
So,
another
right.
field.
I have no objection to raising the pay scales for these particular groups. But I think it's a false narrative to say we're gonna raise the pay scales because people are leaving, because I don't think they're leaving. The sheriff said in the past, whatever, year or 2 years, hardly anyone's left. I think it's the same with the people that we pay salaries to as well. Now, some people do leave, don't get me wrong. But I think the reason to raise the pay scale is to make it competitive so we can hire and keep
Right.
people.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd like to do.
yeah,
I think for me, it's more about recruitment. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how you're ever gonna combat the retention part of it.
right,
You can't keep people from training somewhere and going somewhere
right,
else.
No.
right.
Talk to the folks in Baltimore County that have lost firefighters that have gone to Montgomery or to Howard. I mean, it happens in every jurisdiction. We're not
No,
on an island when it comes to that. I mean, I worked with several folks when I was in the fire department that left, that went to another jurisdiction.
well, we are on an island in the sense that
'cause they-
every surrounding jurisdiction is pulling away from us because of who they are.
Right.
Howard, Montgomery, Baltimore County, I mean, Frederick, they all have,
But I don't know
Larger
that they
scales.
necessarily sit there and go, okay, there's another Carroll County class coming out, let's get 4 of them
I
guys.
wouldn't put it past them.
Now, do you think so? I mean, I can't imagine that.
Mm,
I don't think that they're, I think it's in general. You know, first of all, with the police department, it's a general thing right now that being a police officer is incredibly challenging.
Absolutely,
Yes,
So it's not just about, you know, who are
Absolutely.
we gonna train and, oh, we're gonna lose them.
right,
I think it's more of it's more universal, if you will.
yeah.
And
Howard
I-
County did have a police recruiting billboard on 140 for a while.
Yeah. And the
Shouldn't
classes.
allow that.
Okay,
Pass an
so,
ordinance.
So I guess back to my point is, over the last several years that we've been here, we've been doing a little bit
right,
to try to get to where we need to be. And I know we get outpaced a little bit, but I think we're catching up. I believe the entry-level police or sheriff
it's right about the,
is about where it
Flat.
should be, and that's as a result of the things that we've been doing.
What is it
A
right
little
now?
bit at a time.
What is it, 42 or something?
I don't know what
No,
it
it's
is.
Yeah.
more than that.
I think it's like 50, but it's right in that same bubble. They showed the graphs.
Right.
I mean, I just
Thursday.
don't think we have the ability right
50,
now to be able to
52.
just go, whoop, okay, there it is, and you're good.
So how much did we give last year?
14 Last year was 14%.
What was the, not the
Amount?
percent, yeah, the amount.
I thought
What was the amount that we gave last year?
It was over 2 million.
It was 2 million.
Addition.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a bargain to today's prices.
Okay, so starting pay is 56.
yeah,
And in '22, we've had 3 civilian, 3 law enforcement, and 3 correctional positions where people left.
yeah. Correct, well, correction's really tough.
Yeah, corrections is
They're having a
very
tough time.
hard.
Okay,
And they just graduated 9, which is good.
Yeah.
yeah, I know. Okay, these are placeholders, you know? I want to see 2 million go in for the sheriff's office. And then from that, though, I need to, well, I won't say I apologize. I would like to see the analysis on what that 2 million would look like in the pay scales.
We can't We have no way to give that to you.
Huh?
We have no way to give that to you. We
Why?
don't know what it would look like. Even the last, when you gave them the $2 million last
Yeah.
year, I don't know, how long was it before you knew how it was applied, Heidi?
Between their office and us, it took a few days to work through it.
Okay, yeah. That's fine. I mean, we can handle a few days, you know? I mean, and it's not gonna be to the fine point, but we should be able to get some generalities of, here is where things are gonna start lining up.
Okay, well, we can ask. Like I
Yeah.
said, we have no way to make that happen.
No, but it's in their best interest that they, you know, move forward with this. But, so without going to the entire 3 million, go to 2 million.
Be about 8% addition.
He wants to know how it's gonna be applied. They're not gonna do 8% across the board.
No, it wouldn't be across the board, but overall.
Right.
it'd be 8% on top of the 4.
All right, if you're gonna put that there, what about the other groups?
Yeah, I mean, the libraries.
No, we're gonna be
They're,
hitting
they're,
them.
they're
I know.
barely making, I mean, they're barely able to take care of minimum
I
wage, so.
understand.
If we're gonna give a 30% increase on salaries to the sheriff's department, we ought to give the 3%
I-
increase to the libraries.
I'm not saying no, I'm
I'm
just
just
saying,
saying, let's,
Yeah,
I-
we
I
need
say
to,
we
we
leave that
need
there as
to-
a
Pick it all up.
placeholder, that's good.
so,
Now let's look at the other groups, is all I'm saying.
yeah.
so do we agree with this? That's my motion.
We can leave it as placeholder, that's
Second.
I got a
Good.
motion and a second.
good.
It's a placeholder, we're good?
Yeah,
Aye?
all right.
I'm okay with that, as a
Commissioner?
placeholder.
I'm against.
Okay.
You wanna look, all right, library, do you have it in front of you, Steve?
Yeah, 214,000 the first year. And then it goes up, and that's getting
What are
them
you looking at?
the paperwork that's
Oh.
been provided by.
Why would you look at that stuff?
214,
can't trust
220,
that stuff.
227, 233, 240,
Well, yeah,
248.
that's all, yeah, that's ongoing, yeah. So 214 then is what we're
You're
looking
talking
at
about
right
the
now.
3 positions? No.
No, that's a
5% salary
5%
increase.
salary increase, and then they also wanted minimum wage impacts.
No, that's, if you don't do the
Right.
big salary increase, then they're asking for minimum wage.
All right, then I
It
would
would be
suggest,
included in the other.
as a placeholder, we put that 5% Carroll County Public Library, 5% salary increase in the mix.
I agree. Second, if you're making a motion.
See what it looks like first.
It looks like 214. Then you can look at Carroll Community College as well.
Yeah, which is the second lowest out of how many community colleges in the state.
An awful lot. And
It is the second lowest.
yes. And they're
I
not
don't know how,
striving to
I
be.
don't know how that happened, that they became the second lowest.
They've
That's
always been down
that's
there. They've always been down
crazy.
there. In fact, I think they were the lowest before,
I
then
mean,
we
the effects
we
that
bumped
they
them up to
have
second lowest.
And the value that they bring,
I know.
they are the second lowest.
So let's put their $474,690 in there for Carroll Community College
What were we gonna say,
ongoing.
Ted?
You know, on that, we've talked about this before, and I don't want to lose it now. This is not just about the community college. You know, in Carroll County, we have a long history of underpaying, underpaying relative to other jurisdictions. You know, you can look at the county, you can look at the library, the community college, the school system. It's the same.
I know,
all
but
over.
when you start, you know, being outpaced by Allegheny, and you start getting outpaced by Kent County and some of these others, that you're like, what's going on?
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying, it's not just the college, and
I
it's
know.
nothing new.
And when they have better stadiums than we do, I mean,
Less ag preservation and more taxable income based on the industrial and commercial property helps them out.
They don't have industrial property out there.
Yeah, there's not much out there.
I mean,
yeah.
But they're not finding it's in all the ag preservation. Not that I'm against or anything, but these are variables that impact us. We are unique, and all these unique things do ultimately affect these bottom lines.
They don't cost as much.
That's another debate. But
I
ultimately, it
guess,
leads
all
us
right.
to have less revenue.
Okay,
Let's look
so-
at the last
so-
one that's
well-
there is the Board of Ed. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you want to go with each one, or do you just want to get all three down?
The last one is the Board of Ed. Might as well throw it up there. Although I have to say, I'm not, they're asking for $4 million.
In addition to.
in addition to what they're already getting, I'm not in favor of the $4 million addition.
So I went down from my 2.9 to 2, so what do you
Let's take the
suggest?
4 to 2, if you ask me. It gives them, and I've said this earlier, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but they get a 5-year budget from us that they see, and they never work within that budget. They always come asking for more money. It's just the way it is. If they, and actually two of them are running for this position, who do we ask more money for? The state doesn't give us more, the federal government to give us more. We don't do that.
I see.
You have to make the tough decisions. And I know, I just think they could manage it better. I'm not on the board over there. I don't know what could be done. I don't have suggestions. But they're giving over $17 million more this year than last year, and still want $4 million on top of that? That's a bit. And if it's going to be ongoing, my suggestion is $2 million ongoing.
Let's see where it goes.
Of course, it could be 12 because we don't have it anyway.
Yeah, we don't have it, so. I mean, it's getting worse and worse by the minute here.
Oh, yeah. No,
You know,
we're-
something we talked about with the school requests and the things that they said they needed to fund. If you want to do more towards salaries, I'm not arguing against it, just how they got to their request number. Remember, there were things in there that were funded with one-time sources of revenue that now they're asking you to pick up. You know, the Title I and the use of fund balance. You know, so when you add those into, we want $4 million more, I think that's at least a question. And then the other piece of it was, you know, they talked about requests from town hall. Now, that was focused on mental health and behavioral problems, and it could be that that's a perfectly good thing
Right.
to ask for, but the idea that it came from town hall requests, you know, is no different than you all hearing from people, why don't you do more about whatever?
And you're right, part of the reason that they're where they are is because they funded ongoing money with one-time money. And I remember asking them, are you funding that with one-time money? Yes, we are. Why?
When it runs out.
Right, and then they come, and like what Ted said about Title I running out, that's the federal government, we have nothing to do with that, but it happens every year, they always come, well, the county will make it up, okay. We have limits too, and I'd like to help them out as much as I can, but we have limits too.
And we give them money to steal our employees.
You want to go there?
It's my understanding, the Title I money, it was never forms sent out during the COVID, and the federal government decreased that amount by $1 million. They never followed up with the forms needed to request Title I.
Yeah, well, you know, however that happened, it's not, I mean, it's the same situation we face with grants over here sometimes, which is why I would say to you, you know, be careful about taking on positions with grant funding. You know, once you create the service,
Right.
people want it, and it gets hard to say no
Right.
later, even if the grants go away.
Feeding the cats.
Okay.
Cheapest part about the horse is the horse.
Soak in that
The,
bottom line.
So, I mean,
The positions, the county positions that we put in there, how many of them were there total?
6.
6.
I didn't
No,
know
I
how
thought there was
two
more
was
than
on
that.
five.
Yeah, actually, it might be
there's no-
7.
talking about our positions?
There was more than that, yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
HVAC
8,
two.
8.
8.
Oh,
okay.
okay, sorry. So, 6 in Public Works and, well,
Right.
all in Public Works.
Yeah, but there was 8 total.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And if we looked at, instead of 2 deep, 1 deep in those positions, where they have 2 deep.
Oh, and cutting it down to
Yeah,
1?
To 1.
I mean, your pennies, but
Well,
it's fine. I mean, every penny counts, you're
Okay, does
right.
that mean that money's gonna go back in the Siegel study money? Because that's where it's taken
No.
from right now.
no.
Then I'm not in favor, no.
Yeah, I'm with
Then where
Dennis on
where are we
that.
putting it, where are we putting it?
And what's happening, or at least could be happening here, is a concern of mine, why I made the point of why we put that $7.5 million there.
Yes.
I know.
When you're trying to figure out how to do things, it becomes very attractive to just.
To take
well,
some
let's
from
take
there.
some
I know.
from there.
If we're going from.
I don't disagree, but I still want to see what it looks like. I mean, yeah.
But I'm here to argue.
That Siegel money, I mean, it's not Siegel money.
I
It's
know.
our money that
It
is
is,
reserved. I
But
mean,
if we're gonna do anything with the study that we paid for, then we need money to implement it.
But
absolutely.
who's to say that these positions won't be identified as having to be a part of that money that we
Then
set
they're in.
aside?
Well-
They won't be,
Ted is the one that says it.
How do you know they won't be?
because what we're getting from Siegel
Or not position
It does not
specific?
work like that. It's not position by
Yeah,
position.
okay.
So there are two things we could be looking at in positions here. One are, what positions do we need to make the kind of changes that we're talking about? And that's where we've talked about HR and IT might
Yep.
need more positions than they have.
And the administrator.
Then everything
yeah.
else
Yeah.
is about existing situation.
Right.
Where are we facing service problems? And that's pretty much everywhere. These facilities positions and the solid waste positions, they are about, we don't have enough people to do what you want us to do. That's there, whether we did a study or not.
We did include the outsourced position, or did we not include that?
Yeah, it's in there.
The detention, okay.
If-
Okay,
I'm an advocate for saying that if we're taking those positions that had two and cutting it down to one, fine, but put the money back in the Siegel study,
no,
so we can use it somewhere else.
no.
It's,
Okay, first, so there's two motions here. One is to take those two positions out and make them one deep. That's my motion. So we want to keep those two positions as is?
With the amendment?
no.
There's
I
no
would-
amendment yet.
he
There's
doesn't
two,
wanna-
there's two actions.
No, I would make the amendment that if you cut those two down to one, but we use that money and put it back in the Siegel study.
I would
That's
second
my
that
amendment
as
to
an
that.
amendment to the motion.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, if you're gonna do it that way. But I'm not here to argue about this study.
You don't have-
Okay, so,
I understand that, but
So-
I
so-
understand what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. And some of what I'm reading in there, the study is identifying exactly what the position request is. That we don't have enough people in certain areas. So, I understand what you're saying, that that's not what the study's gonna do, but yet I would argue that in the end, yes, it is. Because the impact on our workforce, by the very fact that people are doing more with less, is indeed in that study.
Oh, I agree, in a broad way. I'm just saying, there's nothing that's coming that's gonna say,
Yes.
you should do
HVAC
this
individual.
this
No,
position in
okay, yeah,
facilities.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, in a global look at this study,
Yeah.
you could argue that these are a big part of that, even though they're specified.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Siegel
Okay,
is
I don't
clearly
want that-
saying,
right.
we
That's
don't
correct.
have enough people.
that's
Right.
correct. Okay. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Okay, so we got the motion that those positions where there were two are now one, and the money is going back into the Siegel study pot. I got the motion, I got the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I'm good with that, if you're gonna put it back, because it's what we were doing anyway.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Aye.
Okay, I'm
Couldn't hear you.
against that. I don't want that. I want to take back to my money. Okay. Where are we now?
See, Ted's happier now.
Pardon me?
You're happier
No,
now.
Ted's not happy.
You can do that relatively easy, Deb, to just kind of pull two positions out.
It's
She already
already
did.
reflected.
She did it,
It's here,
right,
and then the other piece is the outsourcing the
Okay.
right.
facilities, and then here's the reduction to Siegel now.
Okay.
You do, where the outsourcing facilities, can you just caveat that by saying outsource in the,
Yes.
Or.
It says
you
out
already
there.
do it. Is that what C is or no?
Is that what out, is, yeah, is that out on C?
Oh,
Yeah.
it probably says it in C, outsourcing detention.
Okay, yeah, that's good enough, as long as,
That's kind
you
of
know.
hidden, so
Yeah,
we have
okay,
room to just see
thanks.
the screen.
Thanks.
You go down now.
To the bottom line,
Detention center.
No, we don't want to do that.
There we go.
yeah,
That's a negative.
right.
It gets worse about a minute.
We need to get worse. We get better.
We would have to cover this with
One
fund
time,
balance.
right, right. Which is doable.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, but it doesn't help you with 6, 7.
The out years.
No, yeah,
It's
five,
gonna help you with 5.
yeah, 3 and 5 are covered, 6, 7, 8 suck. That's the technical term.
Look bad, and we haven't addressed fire and EMS yet.
That's right,
Even though there's money set aside, we might have the right to set aside.
right.
I don't believe we do.
I don't think so either.
Thanks, Ted.
No, I don't.
No, I don't think so. We don't know.
In
what's
whatever
coming
plan
up.
we choose,
Right,
I don't think we have enough money.
So now we need to go through and start backing out all these things that we want to
Yeah,
do.
well, I don't know what else we're gonna do.
That's right.
I don't think we can
But
back out.
I do
Unless
like
you
this
plug,
approach.
unless you plug money into, one-time money into this to fix it, but that does nothing for 6, 7, and 8, which is typically what we try to do, and we lost that last year. Was that the first year we lost, not having a 5+1 balanced budget, or was it the year before?
It's hard to remember.
Doesn't really matter.
Well, I know it doesn't matter, but I mean, up until that point, we always did
I know,
that, and
because when I
worked
first
hard
came
to
on
be able to
board-
do that. So as
Okay.
not to
Right,
get to that proverbial cliff one year, where
Right.
you're like, okay, well, that ain't good.
right.
Like some other jurisdictions do all.
Well, no, I mean, we were stuck on that 4 years ago. We saw that cliff. The first budget, yeah, that cliff was there.
Yeah, but I thought we were balanced for 5+1.
I think we may have been balanced, but we saw it like it was inevitable,
Yeah.
so.
I like having this all up there so people can see all their wish lists put together and how it impacts that bottom line, so they can put it in perspective what we're faced with. Because we gotta start backing this stuff out.
Well. The Visa request for additional funding for EMS was not addressed. We did everybody else.
Visa,
EMS and the EVOD positions. Not addressed,
that's right there.
not addressed.
This is the issues list.
Oh, it's not there.
No.
Oh. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
But that's
Now-
dependent on what,
Now, okay, I know where you're going, yes, yes.
yeah.
We could just stand by there and see where we're going based on the plan, I guess, but still,
Well, we're gonna talk about the plan next Thursday.
well, we are, but still, I don't know that the plan will address the fact that people aren't making the amount of money that they should be making. And it was interesting to me when I asked the question to Visa, you know, if we provided this extra funding, would everybody get to the same level, which is where it should be? And the answer was, what did they say? Entry level would be. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Taylor?
yeah, they can still use fundraising dollars to supplement as they see fit, but there would be a base level.
And, you know, you're gonna hear a lot, and then, Dick, you're gonna hear a lot Wednesday night, and we'll have to discuss it on Thursday, that the plan, whatever one we pick, doesn't do anything for those employees that are currently working and will continue to work at the companies that aren't gonna be provided career personnel. So, while we're taking care of law enforcement, and, you know, we're all about public safety here, we haven't done a thing for them yet. And they're on the front lines just as everyone else is. So I would suggest that you know, while we're making this bottom line look bad, that we should plug in the request for visa for EMS and the EVOD staff to get them up where they need to be.
But what about, I think when we started this plan originally, these are the companies that they weren't, or they were funding that we are taking over. That money would be saved and go back into, to offset that, would be enough to do it.
Yes, I think,
Because I did ask that question, it depends on what plan we go with.
Right.
That number, what is the first number, 575,000?
Yeah.
Might be a lot less, but there will be a number there. Until we know what plan we're going with, don't know what exactly that number will be. What does the EVOD stand for again?
emergency vehicle operator driver.
Okay.
So you
I
won't
knew
put
it.
this in now, is what you're saying?
Huh?
You won't put this in now?
Well, I don't know that we have to put it in now based on, and Taylor, that's correct. That 575 is not necessarily going to be the number based on the plan, because some of those folks will be removed from having to get the money out of that line item.
Yes, if you did no county staff at all, this would be the number. But
Right.
the intention is to do some county staff, so it'll change.
But the EVOD will stay the same.
Not necessarily. Under all the plans, the EVODs come under us. They're called FADOs then, but, which is fire
Right.
apparatus.
Okay.
Driver operator.
Okay.
But, so both of those lines would reduce as we move forward.
Okay.
CC visa would be decreased, correct?
The funding.
By the amount going into those as we
So it
take.
offsets?
Not for fire, but for EMS.
Well, for a little bit on fire too, because
Okay.
we're gonna,
So that CC visa would be decreased about, by that much, and that should even out with.
yeah, I don't know if
close
it's gonna be a wash, but it's gonna be,
to close.
it'll be less than what these figures are. So maybe we should wait. I just don't wanna get it lost in the mix.
I don't
Right,
think it
sure.
will be.
I don't,
I
Well, I
don't-
won't allow it to happen.
No, I don't think it'll be lost
Do
in the
we
mix.
have a beginning salary set yet for this, or what we're thinking? Is that even thought about?
Yes, it's been thought about.
Is it thought about and solidified?
For each type of position,
Well, just the
But-
basic.
we need to go into that right now.
45.
Okay, so for the basic position, we have 45 built into the projections you have. I don't know that that's what our actual pay scale will end up being. I know HR has been working on it, and there's talks with Michael. I don't know, do you have any, where they are on their talks?
Yeah, so they're finishing up some of the job duties to make sure we have all the training captured, which can change the grade. And then they also are looking at the Siegel study report that pulled all the surrounding jurisdictions to make sure we're competitive.
All right, well, I'm willing to wait on those two until we see what kind of plan
Right.
we're gonna go with.
That'll spell it out to us.
That'll help a little bit. We might be able to get a better idea of how much that would be reduced.
Ted, the additional revenue that came in, the 5 million, that's factored into this already?
Yep.
We increased the projections by $1 million a year.
We increased the projection by $1 million.
Remember, that's where I was saying
Yeah.
that this is potentially volatile revenue
Right.
tied to a small
Right.
number of people, which is why we gave no thought to raising $5 million. You know, I don't know 1 million is the right number,
Right.
but,
Okay.
We should double that.
pardon me?
Okay. Understanding its volatility, and there's risk associated with taking it too far, but are you, you're not playing it too safe? You don't believe?
You know, we never know until we know, but when we talk about the revenues, I'm always very conscious of two ideas, and, you know, Deb and Taylor can probably vouch for this. One is, we don't want to overproject.
Right,
I don't want to put you in a position where you've built expenditures
Right.
on money that doesn't show up. On the other hand, though, I don't want to handcuff you by taking money off the table that we can reasonably expect to be there.
right,
That becomes us making decisions for you because we took it out of your hands.
right.
Finding the right place between those two ideas is always difficult. And I can never say to you, that's it, I've got the number.
Right, right,
What I can say to you is, we considered those two things and thought about the risks and
Yeah.
the upside and downside, and this is where we landed.
and what you can also say is, over the last 5 years, here have been the trends. That would give us a
Well,
feel.
except, that 5 million was part of no trend.
No, I understand, but just the trends of you presenting the numbers,
Yep, and
which has kept us where we need to be, without handcuffing us. However, if it has been more on one side or the other, that'll allow us to say, okay, here's where we're willing to accept more risk in the decisions.
Yeah, and the last couple of years were
Yeah.
so strange, though, it's hard to even
Yeah.
talk about, what's a trend. And, on this idea of where to set the revenues, I'll go back to my proposal for unassigned fund balance. If we have more money sitting on the sideline,
Right,
it's easier to take greater risk on your revenue projections.
right.
This $5 million increase is from the local income tax revenue, correct?
Yes.
All right. Is the state telling us that this is ongoing?
Yes,
Okay, I'm not looking at 5 million a year, but the state's telling us this is ongoing for 5 million, and you put it at 1 million.
okay, no, they're not telling us an ongoing 5 million.
Well,
They're saying
okay.
it's an ongoing change. And the state's thinking on this is the same as what I'm saying to you. And for them, it's probably even a bigger concern because jurisdictions like Montgomery and Anne Arundel and Howard, when I talk about this volatility, it's going to be even greater volatility
Sure.
for them because they have some players who 1 year might pay this much in taxes and the
Right.
next year pay this much.
Right.
But the problem is the same one. And, we have talked with the guy at the state who deals with these questions, and he shares the same concerns.
So, I mean, I'm not thinking it's gonna be 5 million each year. But I'm thinking it should be, I don't know, half that. I know you no way to know, but if it goes from 5 million, you're only putting 1 million in. I don't,
Okay, on what basis are you saying that, other than you'd like to have more money?
okay, that's number one.
That's pretty much it, right there.
But it's just such a drastic decrease. You're only putting 20% in.
No, but that's only true if you're starting with an assumption that the 5 million is ongoing.
Well,
And,
something's gonna be coming.
But we don't know. This is.
Yeah, but there's something will be coming. And you're taking that 5 million and splitting it up over 5 years for $1 million a year. Is that right?
no, I'm not splitting it up at all. We're just raising the line $1 million. So if our projection had been 100 million, 105, 110, now it's 101, 106, 111. We're acknowledging that there's an ongoing change. It doesn't change our growth assumptions, but it lifts the whole line. And, you're saying, well, why 1 million, why not 2.5 million?
That's exactly what I said.
And I can't say that that's wrong, but I don't think you are in a better position to say 2.5 million is
No.
more right than we
No, I
are with our
understand.
1 million.
I understand.
So we can push this number up, it's,
When,
I can tell you, if we thought we should, we would have already told you that.
yeah. When do you think you'll have a better understanding of what that number is going to be?
We never will, I don't think. Well, no, that's not true, because this,
You've gotta have some idea at some point.
Right after
see,
we close the-
there will never be another distribution like this. It will just be built in
Right.
to all the other money
Okay,
that
so
we
it's not
get.
specifically set aside, oh, here's your extra.
Yes, exactly. And we'll have all the same problems we always have.
Right.
The money's coming to us before it's tied to a tax return. And it's possible that someday we might get some information from the state that helps us a little bit. But that's because the state knows what's on the tax returns. We never do. We don't get that information. But the state is very careful about sharing information from tax returns. So the best we can hope for is, we get some sort of broad guidance that this seems to have affected things in a certain way. But even that is going to vary by county. Like I said, the effect on Montgomery is going to be very different than the effect on us, which is going to be very different than the effect on Somerset. So I think the easy answer to your question is, we're never really going to know. All we're going to see is the same flow of money that we've always seen.
Right.
Go ahead, please.
How much is left in the reserve for contingencies for
There you go.
2021?
This fiscal year, 2022,
10.5?
the reserve for contingency or the,
No, I got you.
Okay.
Unrestricted fund balance
right
for
here?
2021 is 10.4.
Mhm.
And you're estimating that at the end of this fiscal year that we're currently in, it's gonna be about 20.5.
Yes. So the total of both of them.
Is 30.9.
Yes.
We have-
However, this
Okay.
is 4.3 negative right now.
I got that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going with my line of questioning. And I'm sorry I'm away from the mic, but I can't see.
Hey, don't feel alone.
So, I'll talk loud. So, we haven't yet either taken any of your recommendations and set aside the 20% that you think we should do.
5%, but no, we haven't.
Or I'm sorry,
5%.
5%. But that's 5% of our total budget.
It's like
Right.
$20 million.
Which is,
So-
$22.
21?
Ish.
I think, probably 23.
So with that logic, you could take 10 million off of that right now.
Okay, so here's where I'm going, and this is awful, but whatever, I'm just throwing it all out there. Why not take that unrestricted fund balance of 10.4
Right.
and throw it into however you can on the bottom line
Mm-hmm.
of our current proposed budget and leave the 20.5 completely alone and not touch it?
And that would meet your intent to do just that.
Well, get you close.
Yeah.
But when you say
So,
put the 10, what are we saying to do with the 10 million?
Well, I mean, somehow adjust it so that it moves
Right.
along
the adjusted,
the adjusted bottom
Yeah.
line, or put it all in 23, I
To
don't
do-
know.
Yeah, to do exactly what you said, don't do it the first thing when we
I
got
know
here
that's what you
today.
said. I know
Okay.
that.
no, but it's gonna cover your recommendation of the 5%, which is the 20,500,000, give or take. Take that 10 million, apply it on the bottom line, which we know that's not the best solution for
Yeah, I
you.
get all that.
But, and let's see what that gives us.
Okay, if you tell me to do that, we will do that.
It doesn't fix the out years.
But
I understand that.
I'm adamantly against it. All it does is cover over
Looks good for 3%.
that it doesn't work.
Okay, I understand that. I'm trying to look at all scenarios here. This is probably wrong, but I want to see it.
I'm glad you did bring that up, because at least the public can see that, because a lot of people in the public think this.
That's all one-time fills. That's all one time. Yeah, but.
Now, in this scenario, we're good till 27. I know we're not,
Well-
this is not the best way to do this, but you could certainly write a check for $567, Ed, and get us balanced.
You didn't want to divide it by 5, split it up?
You want to pass it?
Yeah. and
I
what-
just, I understand, Ted, I get it. I've worked with you now for almost 8 years, and I understand it. I just always like to see every scenario, even if it's not the most, or the best method here.
What,
But
yeah, go ahead.
I would only do anything like this at all, and I'm not really suggesting that we do it, if we indeed said, whatever the projected unrestricted fund balance is at the end of this year, we don't touch it, period. And it just gets set
Until the next
aside.
board comes on.
No, you can't, yeah, and you can't say that. I mean, you can strongly recommend it, but, you know,
And they're really two different things.
I-
You know, having the unassigned fund balance gives us flexibility in the future, but it can't be, there's no way for that to fix the ongoing problem.
I know. Well, it kinda did.
well, yeah, but again, it's putting lipstick on a pig.
I understand that.
So, going back to trying to figure out the trends of how it was described, you know, your insight over so many years to give us a feel on how to use money or protect money. I mean,
Are you on income tax again?
no.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just on either getting ourselves ahead of the skis or behind, you know. It's all about risk. Where should we have the ability to accept risk? And are we too risk adverse? Kind of like what you were saying earlier, where you're designed to get us to even, you know? You don't want to underview it and you don't want to overview it. So, you know, it's where have you been most that will allow us to understand what risk we should at least be willing to, you know, suggest. That's one question. And the other is I do want to about revenue. So,
Yeah, with income tax, budget has come in, I mean, actuals have come in less than budget.
Yeah.
Actuals have come in more than
Okay.
budget. Income tax is almost impossible to get right.
Yeah.
We try and be in the right ballpark, and I hope that more often than not, more comes in than.
Yeah, of
than
course.
We got. But, you know, if you want me to say, we can look back and demonstrate that we've always significantly under budgeted, you know, it's not there, I can't do it.
okay.
You know, we've had close call years sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, where, you know, you start to worry, are we gonna make it? And then we have other years where, you know, it's, okay, we're in good shape this year. But the thing, you know, putting aside just the revenue picture, we need to look at the expenditure side too. We know that right now, we've already built a plan that doesn't work.
Right.
So if you take on additional risk on your revenue projections,
Right.
you're just feeding into
Right.
an existing problem,
The
if
gap
it
gets
turns out to be
bigger.
wrong.
Right. No, yeah, and the first part, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, it at least gives me an understanding that, okay, yes, you're not either one side or the other, and we should be aware that it can come up one way or the other, whether you undershoot or overshoot.
I remember one year, Commissioner Howard was basically arguing, Ted, you're being too careful. And Commissioner Rothschild was arguing I was being wildly optimistic. So I was sitting here, I felt like, you know, I had one arm going over here and one going the other way. And, you know, I didn't think either of them were right. But there's always room to argue this
Yeah.
stuff.
Someone
The-
should have got out the sword and split you in half.
Yeah.
The revenue, you know, we brought it up, the different pathways of revenue, the different approaches to bring revenue in. You know, I don't know what that will, honestly, what that looks like, but getting a better understanding as we move forward, I think is going to help.
Why don't you just say what you want to say?
Well, I don't know what's going to look, I don't know the type of taxes to
Where are
use.
you going?
I don't know exactly where I'm
You're asking
going.
for a tax increase?
No, I'm
What are you
asking.
saying? I'm not sure.
Okay.
Just
That-
say what you're saying.
I'm saying what I'm saying is I don't know what different taxes do. I don't know. So I'm asking
Okay, well,
the
it's,
different type of taxes and how to use different revenue coming into the county. That's exactly what I'm saying. There's no magic to this.
it's fairly simple. We have well over 100 different revenues, but most of them just don't move the needle.
Okay,
Property tax is something like 60% of your operating budget. Income tax is about 30% of your operating budget. Now, your next biggest revenue is recordation, which is 20 million compared to income tax at what now? 100, pardon me? 180.
That's an erratic source too, isn't it? Recordation fees?
Yes. So income tax, 180, third biggest revenue, recordation at maybe 20 right now. But that's not going to stay there, because remember,
Right.
we talked about, we have this in our projections returning to $14 million. Because I don't believe there's any way the same level of activity can
It's
continue.
driven by the market.
Yes. So when you're talking about how does this all work, what you're really talking about is property tax and income tax. The rest of it is
Okay.
rounding out the edges.
I mean, there's,
On property tax, you have your tax rate, you have your assessments, and you have new construction. If we assume the tax rate is whatever it is for the rest of it, the state does the reassessments, that has some impact on us. This year, it led to a greater increase in revenue than we had planned because the assessment was higher than we planned. Sometimes it works the other way. And then new growth. That's not captured in the assessments because it's not part of the base yet, so we add there. Right now, we build in about an assumed $125 million worth of growth, which is about $1.25 million of revenue. So that helps, but the big money is in assessing the existing base. So what can change what we get? You can get more new growth. There are ways we can encourage that if we want, but going back to an earlier conversation, not everybody wants more new growth. So there are things to think about there, even if you feel like you can make it happen. We don't participate in the assessment, which is as I believe it ought to be. The state does that. They don't care what our revenue picture looks like. They're just saying, what do we think these things ought to be valued at?
right.
And then the other piece is in your hands. What is the tax rate? Income tax, you set the rate. Everything else is about how many people do we have living in Carroll County who have a job and how much money do they make. We've talked about this some. This has changed for us. Well, both of them. Property tax used to grow in a way it doesn't now because we were adding to the base much more quickly than we are. The new growth. Remember, when you talk about the difference between 1,200 new homes a year and 300 new homes a year, that's a big deal. Income tax, we can do things to encourage job growth, but there's little you can do to just make it happen. We know our population is not growing in the same way that it once did. We know we have an aging population. Those things are impacting what we can expect out of income tax.
Whole new set of expenditures for us with an aging population.
Well, I'm only thinking about the revenue
Yeah,
side
well, I'm
right
saying
now. Yep.
some things are offset.
Yeah, well, when we have people going in retirement,
They're
that's
fixed
a
income.
hit to our revenue because most people in retirement aren't going to pay the same kind of taxes that they did when they were working. And again, you can set the rate, although you have a limitation on income tax. State says you can't do more than 3.2%. We're currently at 3.03%. So you have some discretion, but not unlimited discretion. Now, property tax, you can actually raise to whatever number that you said, there's no legal restriction on what you can do. You know, so, I don't know, is
So
there?
when we talk about, this safety type of tax and all that kind of stuff, can we designate that to go to specific areas, or does it just go into the big pot of money?
Okay, well, I believe if we had this tax approved by the legislature, it would legally be restricted to whatever purposes were in that legislation. We also had a discussion earlier, you can just choose to dedicate revenue to a source. Like we talked about, we've chosen to dedicate part of our local income tax to school construction. We've chosen to dedicate part of our property tax to ag pres. Those can be changed at any time.
By
You can
any
make those
set
go
of
away right now
commissioners?
if you
Yeah,
want.
but so we do it here, the next set of commissioners can change it to whatever they want.
They can, although we have a long history. Both of those things go back to the 90s, so we've been doing it for a long time.
Have we been doing it right?
On the local income tax to school construction, I think we've been well served by that.
Okay.
The big thing that does is separate what to do with school construction from all the other things we're doing, so that they're not directly in competition with each other. It also has given the school system a known revenue amount. When they're looking at things, they know how much money is available. Now, of course, that doesn't lead to requests that necessarily fit within that money, but I mean, it's known. We're not arguing over how much money is going to be available for school construction. So is it right? I'm not going to argue it's right or wrong, but I think it's worked.
Well, my biggest concern is inflation and how it's impacting us and the county in general, because the inflationary index is up around 7.5%, and even though we're giving substantial raises at 5.5%, the reality is citizens out there are not making up enough in their loss because of the inflation. On average, they say each household income is losing $5,200 of consumption annually just from the devaluing of the dollar of inflation. So the concept of us putting these additional tax on our citizens isn't gonna go over. It's gonna hurt them even more. They're in a hellacious pinch now from inflation, just like we are with our budget. They're facing the same thing. And as was mentioned earlier, like the school can come to us and push on us. Well, the proverbial, runs downhill. That's gonna cause us to push down on the citizens in the end. And I don't think they want that. They don't want us to cut this budget somehow. They're not gonna want us to raise our taxes.
Well, nobody has suggested raising
Yeah, I don't
taxes.
think
Yeah.
anybody has
Yeah.
suggested
Yeah.
raising taxes.
Well, you're asking about additional revenue.
I'm asking about understanding how revenue comes in. Nobody here has talked about raising taxes.
All right, good. I'm
So,
sorry, but I
don't be
will
sorry,
express the concern that not only your concern.
You're not the only
Your
concern.
citizens have the exact same concern. I'm speaking in general terms. Our citizens have a very legitimate concern here about the value of their existing income, being able to sustain the needs that they have to support their families.
And when you said somewhere in there, that people don't want taxes, they're going to want us to cut the budget. And people will argue to cut the budget, but rarely do they argue to actually cut services.
Yeah.
And when I talk to community groups, an idea I talk about a lot is what I call the fundamental dilemma of elected officials. There's a disconnect between what people are willing to pay and what they want.
Don't cut my
Yeah.
budget, cut their budget.
And that's, yeah.
Right.
Okay, I think we got to a point. We have open session,
Where did we leave it now? I don't.
well, we left it at
Let's see that bottom line after we step
a
in.
very
And all the stuff in yellow has not been voted on yet.
And I know, right, and I know you're gonna capture all the notes, Deb, and we have open session on Thursday morning at 09. There will be no closed session at 08, and I'll make sure that they get that upstairs as well.
That's using the surplus.
And then,
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what? Okay.
And then we have,
Take it out if you just wanted to see it.
I'd like to sleep on that.
That's using
Yeah.
the $10 million you said,
Yeah,
right?
so- yes. it's
and then we have,
We think about that, Ted.
open session at 1 o'clock on Thursday, which is a work session, it'll be down here. So the open session is upstairs in the morning and down here in the afternoon.
No need for donuts.
Is there,
Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
anything else for the good of the group?
I don't know why he said that.
Put on 3,000 there.
No, I think, I mean, I look forward to seeing what comes out of
These discussions
the
today.
ESAC meeting Wednesday night. And I think we'll have a little bit more to work with on Thursday afternoon as a result of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I would suggest to all of us to take a look at those plans again in an attempt to try to figure out which one you feel is the better way to go. And perhaps there's a way in which to do Plan F, which hasn't been brought up yet, which is a hybrid method of two of the others,
right.
which I think may reach a happy medium. And you were in on the discussion last night a little bit. You heard some of the things I was saying, and you heard some of the things that were being said back to me.
I heard a lot of things from different people
Yeah.
who said, and Dennis was with me Saturday night at Reese, and we went through that same proposal out. I want to hear from you, and boy, I did.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
yeah.
but people were realistic, I think, really, when you look at it. Yes, they want it all right now, but explain to them why, and, well, let's give it a couple of years to make it happen.
Yeah, that's sort of the way I'm leaning towards trying to find a hybrid method between two of the ones that we have. I just, but we'll see what they
I agree with you.
say Wednesday evening, Dick, and take some
And-
good notes and bring it back, and we'll go from there on
And
Thursday
you said
afternoon.
this is an advisory council.
Well, right, ultimately, they know it's our responsibility, but I think we need to respect the fact that they need to be in on some of
Yes.
this.
No, I think they.
But they also need to respect the fact that we can't do all of this out of the gate. I think the respect needs to go both ways here. But I will say, it's increasingly challenging when they see all kinds of money being thrown at existing departments. And
Hey, we're responsible for a lot of things.
I know, so I just need to keep that, we need to keep that in mind too. I mean, we did a lot today and didn't end up in the right place. But-
No.
We started.
Well, what we did was we put it out on paper.
Well, right.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's key. So now it's in front of us
Yeah,
to now have the conversations.
yeah, so,
Okay, ladies, I appreciate all the work. Ted, as well. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion's got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.